So, tonight the Society is featuring Joanne Wheeler's collections of ladies' fashions spanning over 100 years, beginning with the 1830s up through the 1940s. Joanne is a lady of intuitive sensibility, mastering fundamentals, the mechanics, while preserving aesthetic possibilities towards the crafts. Throughout her life, she has demonstrated her talents through many mediums. She's been married to Willard Wheeler over 60 years. As a new bride, she moved into his family's homestead, becoming the 5th generation in the Hastings Wheeler household. She inherited a good collection of family things, and dresses were among them. And the ones that were in the home, they formed a foundation that she's expanded to well over 50, and countless accessories as well. And here we have a sampling of what she's attained. Well, starting in the 1960s, with avid historian Katie Bacon, she worked in the Art and Historical Society, recovering and preserving documents and articles of Berlin's heritage, which were long ago tucked away in boxes and vaults. And many of you here, I'm sure, remember some of those early days. Well, through that, she especially demonstrated her innate sense of craft, respecting the delicacy of these articles in the handling, and she had that special touch in practical restoration. She's been the guiding force behind 3 clothing shows. One in 1969, then a show of wedding gowns in 1985, and that was with the flowers and escorts and organ music. That was held in the church. And then the third was in 1988, with costumes from the 1800s up through the 1960s. And these were all displayed on live models. Tonight's display is on mannequins, due to the delicacy of some of the dresses, which no longer would stand up to live demonstrations. So Joanne is here with us tonight. So I'd like you to join me in acknowledging her. Well, now we'll go on with the show. And Marsha Johnson is going to be narrating, and I'm going to be fumbling around. So just pretend like we're window shopping.
He has to do all the work after. The dresses you're about to enjoy here are a general representation of style over approximately 150 years, as Richard already mentioned. The dates have been interpreted from past clothing shows and expert opinion. They might not all be exactly correct. Some of the fabrics, as Richard said, also have withstood the test of time very well, but others are extremely fragile, and handling them is done with extreme care. A little later, you'll see at first hand how these dresses will be preserved to last many more years. I'd like to give a little general history about fashion, then we'll get into actually doing some descriptions on the dresses with the help of Richard. Circa 1830 dresses from the Jacksonian era had dropped shoulders, puffed sleeves to fitted wrists, and high empire waists with low round necks trimmed in lace. Good taste became important in fashion, and not just for the wealthy. Even the working girl could choose a well-cut bodice, a beautiful skirt, and a colorful scarf. The 1840s look appeared submissive with the sloped shoulder, poke bonnets, and the hair worn in ringlets. Paper patterns and part-made bodices were now available for home and handmade dresses. Circa 1850 to 1860, the antebellum era dresses had detachable undersleeves in fine white embroidered muslin tied to the inside of the elbow, and it covered the lower arm. Crinolines, a cage-like apparatus, replaced up to 12 petticoats, and the lightness of the hoops and the lack of waist constriction was seen as a positive libation, and the lightness enabling the wearer to look like a cloud on the ballroom floor. You'll see some of those dresses later on. But by the mid-1860s, even though the legs were free, they were so absurdly wide they caused major mobility problems. America's first fashion magazine, Godey's Ladies Book, appeared, which let the reader know that 6 petticoats, 1 flannel, 1 padded with horsehair, 1 cotton stiffened with braid, 1 with horsehair flounces, 2 starched muslins were in order the day. Put those all on and try to stand up. So the next magazine would come and happily announce that the current style was the light steel hoop with shoulder straps to take all that weight off of the hips. Looking healthy was not in vogue, so faces were powdered and no rouge was worn because people thought it was beautiful to be pale. Feminists were not content to be useless, and so donned trousers with knee-length skirts to attain the position side by side with man. The costumes champion and American dress reformer Amelia Bloomer pointed out that Adam and Eve's fig leaves were identical. Female pantallooning was abandoned after much vilification, so stays and long skirts came back until women were granted the vote in the 1920s. In the 1860s, a sewing machine, which we have a sample you can look at, was patented by Isaac Merritt Singer and allowed for the earliest machine-made, homemade dresses. Factory-made dresses had been available since the 1850s, but all the finishing, hemming, tucking, buttonholes were done by hand. After the 1870s, machines were developed for stitching down seams, band stitching, collar padding, buttonholing, and steam ironing. These allowed for more ornamentation, like applique and lace trimmings, and colorful cloth due to chemical dyes. The walking dress had a long jacket with fitted sleeves worn over full skirts and appeared semi-tailored. The hair was worn in a low chignon with flat oval pillbox or pork pie hats. By 1865, more elaborate dresses were being worn with heavy bowing, stitched down bodice seams, narrow sleeves with tight-fitting shoulders, and neat perfume sachets under the armpit to catch ladies' perspiration. By the mid-70s, the wool and thick silk fabrics, as well as the appliques, weighed the garments down almost intolerably. But remember, houses were not as warm as today's, and transportation was much more open air. The 1875 was described as the Gilded Age and continued through the gay 90s. The American Dress Patent Company, Butterick, opened shop, so women could make their own stylish clothes. Many European couture shops have been around since the 1850s, and dress number 10, on display here tonight, which we'll get to, has the original label and the box from Le Bon Marché of Paris. I'm going to stop here. We're going to describe some of the dresses here, and then we'll continue on. Ready? This first dress is circa 1830. You can follow along with the program if you like. It's a summer weight, 2-piece, empire waist, fine off-white cotton, with a small rose-brown daisy print, and has short double puff sleeves and a low round neck. The top is a cotton twill lined with eye-hook closures, and the 24-inch waist with full skirt would be worn with multiple petticoats. The second dress here is a circa 1840, a 2-piece, green striped, floral, fine wool. It's a wool dress. The bodice is lined and severely boned. The diagonally cut sleeves, you can see the fabric where it goes the opposite way, are fitted at the top and joined to the shoulder with narrow piping, then tucked to a wristband. The full pleated skirt has a green waistband, and the hem is hand-stitched using a cotton chintz lining. Show them the
tell me. I don't.
It's brown material. You'll see a lot of this brown material. Ginseng. The next dress, I love this purple dress, is a deep purple. It's a satin finished silk. It's another two-piece dress. It's lined with cotton twill and has an ivory lace collar and pointed front. The waist is approximately 27 inches. It has darts and a back-hook closure. The sleeves flare down to scallop bottoms. See how, from the sloped shoulder, which is the same as the same sloped shoulders on all these dresses. The skirt has inverted pleats in the front and regular pleats in the back and reside under the bodice. This dress was modeled with the same purple straw bonnet and a black genuine fan in the 1969 program by a girl from Boylston. The next dress, number 4, is the 1860s. Two-piece brown and black plaid silk taffeta with a fitted back and curved seams and a black embroidered covered buttons down the front. The long, narrow fitted sleeves end with a ruffle and attached to a sloped shoulder indicative of that era. The skirt is fully lined with that same brown cotton chintz. And this dress was worn with a lace collar, large hoop, and petticoats. This dress was worn by Nancy Eddy of Hudson. Her aunt had donated the Tucker collection to the town of Doyle. My next dress, number 5, is 1860 machine stitched, two-piece, fine cotton cinnamon brown with black grape cluster print dress with white pearl buttons down the front, and a high banded neck collar with a black piped biased ruffle, which is mirrored at the bottom of the long-waisted bodice. The material's cut differently. The shoulder is dropped again with a fitted sleeve ending in that same ruffle. The full skirt has a gathered back or a bustle and a fitted front. You can also see the difference now with the jacket. I mean, the bodices are long, but these are all short, and now we're getting into some of the longer jackets. The next one, number 6, is the 1870 two-piece beige. This is grass cloth. It'd be a day dress. Has brown trim, covered buttons, a long pointed front. And fitted back with 2 more buttons, which if you walk around, you'll see the other buttons at the back. The lace trim at the neck we think might have been added a little bit later. The skirt is a double layer. This is a complete overskirt over that one. With the same bias trim and the brown piping. The overskirt is longer in the back, and a flounce is on the underskirt. And Janet Campbell of town wore this in the 1969 program. Where are you? Number 7. This one's my favorite. This is from the 1870s, 1880. It's a two-piece medium navy blue taffeta. The long bodice, the taupe ruffled inset, edged with the taupe braid trim and covered buttons, and it's worn over that skirt, which is a narrowly fitted back. The back has 3 points and separates to allow for a bustle. Puff shoulder and fitted sleeve ends with pointed wristbands trimmed with the same taupe braid trim. The very full line skirt has a back closure and several inverted pleats, as well as a bias cut rosette ruffle in the front. The dress was worn in 1988 by Karen Chandler of town. And the next and last dress on this side, for all the lucky people, is circa 1875. Let's see, it's a blue two-piece, it's an iridescent blue-silver chintz taffeta. This has a skirt with pleated side panniers on the sides and a pleated ruffle to accommodate a bustle and petticoats. A long fitted bodice with the high banded collar has inverted iridescent pleats on the front, as well as inverted pleats and boning on the back. The shoulders are slightly dropped with a fitted sleeve, covered buttons and points at the wrist in the iridescent material. Joanne Wheeler's sister, Hope, wore this dress in the 1969 program. At this point, I'm going to stop, and Edie and Elmer are going to show us how to preserve versus restore.
Prepared costumes for storage. First of all, we have purchased acid-free boxes and acid-free paper in a long roll. Edie here has a catalog from which we ordered these supplies, which are very expensive. And
The roll of tissue paper runs anywhere from $20 to $56, depending on the size and the width of the roll of paper. And the boxes vary. This size box is about, it kind of depends on how many you order, but it would run, if you order 10, it would probably run you $34 a box. And if you only order one, it's like $39 a box, but it's well worth it because you know your collection is safe. We're just going to remove the box so we can have our table to work on.
the other thing, a dress of this style would probably go just one in a box. So small articles can be a couple, maybe 3 pieces.
You pack them with lots of air.
Lots of air.
Not necessarily hot air, but
Well,
we have, when you get an article for your collection, it is very nice to have the date that you receive it and the name of the person that is giving it. It helps to identify the article, and we have written a little something about this dress. That was part of Joanne's collection, and Elma can read the description. We have to put on our working gloves.
they should be handled with white cotton gloves because the acid from your hands can eventually
Soil.
soil the garment. You need to show this
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, I'll hold it.
This is a black velvet dinner dress, early 20th century. The bodice with an ecru lace insert across the V-shaped neckline. It's a gathered gusset at the midriff, right through here, below the bust line. There's long full sleeve, gathered onto wide cuffs, and it's fastened with 5 round, faceted cut glass buttons. The skirt is assembled with several bias cut pieces. Very unusual. They form a very pleasing flare at the hip, kind of.
Maybe if I hold it,
Interesting
maybe if I
inside
hold
out,
it,
maybe
yeah, hold it this way, which is, this is the side of the dress, not the front or the back.
No, it kind of-
It's the side.
A matching waist tie accompanies the dress.
Over there.
Oh,
It was in my way.
oh, okay. And this too is from the Joanne Wheeler collection.
Right here. To have a nice work table is always nice. And what we are going to do is pack the dress so that there's tissue paper in between all layers of the dress. You don't want the material touching each other, so you insert tissue. This is for the sleeves. And then we cut a piece to put up the center of the dress, up in between. This can be challenging.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to have two people work on it. This is what we call Tweedledee and Tweedledum is working.
The entertainment is free.
Entertainment is free.
You kind of try to keep the paper loose, not really
Yeah, you don't want to
down.
jam it.
And sleeves always present a problem.
I'm going to go in this way.
Come here.
Got it? Some dresses have very thin sleeves. And try to
We have
get
very fat hands.
try to get your. That's my glove.
Want to go through that again?
We will on that side.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Yeah. We have struggled with many a costume that we have already done in the Society's collection.
You going to catch this guy?
Yeah. It is time consuming, but well worth it.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yep.
All right.
And now, it's going to be folded very loosely, but we still need to put another piece of paper over the middle, and then fold the sleeves. And then you fold the excess paper that you have laid on the bottom. And hopefully you guessed the width of the box. This one? tie gets
What
with
is
it.
that you got there?
This is the tie, the belt. The belt that goes around. And that should also be wrapped. Probably can't see what we're doing, but
No, I'm aware.
you're in the way now. Well, that'll be all right. And then pull the skirt up. And then after you have got it in the box, what we have done in our society is that on the end of the box, this dress will be given a number, and it is written on the end of the box so that you know what is in the box, and a very, very light description of the dress or the article, so that when you put it away in storage, close it up, that when you stack them on the shelves, you will be able to know what is in the box so you don't have to keep opening it, which is very difficult to close. You gotta have it square. There we go. And then and the number and the owner and the description goes in the computer so that we have it on file. That's it.
You're only gonna do one?
We're not going to ask if there's any questions. Oh, there is a box.
This probably would take more than one.
This might take two
Put
dresses,
multiples in there?
and then you would just add
Yes.
to the side of the box.
Each would have a separate number.
The big thing is how much material you got. A lot of these dresses have so much material, you only get one box. And the second thing is you don't want creasing. The big thing is to avoid all the sharp creasing, and that's part of the reason for some of the stuffing and so forth.
This box happened to have tissue with it, and they're small pieces. And this is great for the small articles. We chose to do the big wide, it's easier to wrap it. You got a question?
I presume that before you package it, you clean the dress. How do you do that? Is that done professionally, or is that, how do you think?
Some things, cotton things, you can pretty much wash.
You can do it yourself.
You can do it yourself.
So,
Why would you do it yourself for these?
no.
A lot of those you're gonna, about all you can do is dust them lightly. I mean, there's pieces here that are fragile enough, we're not sure we'll ever put them on a form again. So,
Would there be a problem if you put different types of fabric? I mean, some are more acidic than others together, so you'd only like cotton in one box.
We try to do it that way. That's the other reason that everything is completely wrapped. We don't pass it off to each other.
A lot of the garments themselves are mixed material, don't wool as well, so they can say, so there's some way to deal with it.
Any other questions?
Salary Edie for its formative presentation. side now for all you lucky people over here. In the 1880s, the new all-in-one style upholstered princess line dress was becoming popular, and the corset played a major supportive role in the life of the Victorian woman, creating 15-inch wasp-waisted hourglass figures. Wealthy ladies who had no need to engage in physical labor wore the tightest lacings and the most voluminous dresses. Indeed, the slightest exertion was apt to bring on a fainting spell due to the 6 layers of clothing worn under her dress, which included a chemise, stockings, a heavy-boned long corset, 2 or 3 petticoats, hoops, bustles possibly, and open-leg drawers. If you remove those 6 layers of clothing, you'd be left with a popular circa 1989 spring style, a lingerie-like pantsuit. Imagine wearing impractical hoops and the bustle, which was a form of a hoop made by attaching half a dozen springs covered with horsehair to an adjustable belt, then covered with cloth, bows, and tassels. The long dress trains which swept the ground prevalent in this era gave men cause to joke that the style did away with street cleaners. But they also required many hours of brushing and renovating. From the 1890s to 1900, women still wore tight corsets, but the heavy draped bustle was abandoned and skirts were gored. Ladies' Home Journal recommended that every girl's college wardrobe include the indispensable short skirt, which fell to the ankle, and the tailor-made suit. This suit, as well as the woolen and serge skirt worn with light shirtwaist blouse, was very popular with the new woman at the turn of the century. They could be purchased off the peg and allowed more freedom for riding a bicycle, sporting events, shopping, and most important, working. With the advent of more athletic and physical sports in the early 1900s, women wore broad straw hats and beachwear covered the body, but were still wearing corsets with steel or whalebone stays, and ruffled petticoats which fell to the floor and were called dust catchers. These were sometimes lined with silk, which made a rustling sound and required raising the skirt and the petticoat to one side in the so-called kangaroo walk. Now go and we'll describe the dresses on this side. Sorry, guys. Number 9. Number 9. It's a 2-piece. It's a black, layered, pleated front dress. The bodice has an ivory lace with pink ribbon insert, plus a black fringed beaded lace at the front. The top is a longer fitted, gathered at the waist with piped shoulder, and a 3/4 length sleeve decorated with a cuff of the same lace and a piped rosette attached with black and pink piping. The skirt is full in the back to allow for a small bustle and has a hooked closure. The next dress, number 10, is a beautiful, really incredible dress. If you look at the embroidery on this dress, it's a beautiful gray silk veil. It's a 2-piece dress covered with dusty rose embroidery. It has the original label sewn inside from Au Bon Marche in Paris. Truly beautiful. It has long, fitted sleeves with a double gather at the shoulder. It's bowed and fitted bodice with front hook closure. It has a stand-up collar, which is all embroidered on the inside, and a pointed pleated back. You'll have to walk around the other side to see it. The multi-layered skirt, because there's a lot, it has a thing in the back, and hand-knotted fringe at the bottom would be worn with a bustle and petticoat. And there's also a back train edged with the same fringe as the front. This dress was worn by Harry Goodwin, who used to reside in town in the 1969 show. The next dress is of a gray and ecru fine wool with a pin-tucked center front and a stiff stand-up pin-tucked ecru collar which extends into the top of the sleeve. There's a lace bow applique on each side of the front, as well as lace trim and a double-hooked front up to the left shoulder. It hooks up. The sleeves are long, fitted with points over the hand and the same applique trim. The full underskirt with full gored pleated back and gored front has a pure silk ecru double ruffled hem, which is much longer in the back. This dress was worn by Jane Lane here from town in '69. This next dress is an amazing color. To me, it's truly a Cinderella dress of teal blue wool and an iridescent embroidered satin. It has darker teal velvet trim. If you look closely at the black, there's a black iridescent bead trim along the front satin panel. It has very puffed sleeves with long ecru lace at the sleeve bottom, down the front and across the back shoulders. The back has 4 darts and falls to a weighted hem. This dress was worn by my sister-in-law back in 1988. It was very tiny, as you can tell by the dress. The next dress is number 13, circa 1895. And it's a patent voile dress which belonged to Willard Wheeler's mother. And it has an ecru satin striped in blue flowered print fabric and black lace trim. The machine-stitched 2-piece dress has a high neck, stand-up collar of black lace, a narrow shoulder, which is gathered into a long sleeve with a ruffled black lace trimmed wrist. The pin-tuck bodice in the back has a chevron lace pattern as well as a black ribbon flower. The skirt is pin-tucked at the waist, has 5 ruffles trimmed with black ribbon as well as 3 stripes of ribbon with ribbon flowers at the bottom. And it's worn with a black velvet belt, and Joan Labonte wore this in 1969. Okay, now we're into the next era. 1900 to 1910 was known as the Edwardian period, a time of frou-frou and femininity, elegance and graciousness, with your frothy high-neck gowns, huge hats, soft, easily damaged silk chiffons and crepes trimmed with yards of fine handmade lace applique and trimmings, and the S-bend figure obtained by long corsets. The upkeep of this style of clothing was extremely labor-intensive, as well as the hairstyles, which were swept up, pinned, and padded. After 1910 and into the ragtime music era, dress shapes changed immensely to tube styles or sheath dress, which hid a woman's shape from shoulder to hem. The hobble skirt was tight at the ankle, and hats with huge feathers, plumes, and butterfly wings were worn. Fashion continued to develop during World War I, when due to women working in factories and on the land, more practical box suits or jodhpurs broke down the taboo against trousers for women. After World War I, the natural figure returned with simple one-piece frocks, lower waists with shorter skirts, and simple round necklines. Women's rights in the roaring 20s epitomized the liberated flapper, the charleston, and hem lengths higher than the knee, bare arms and hairstyles called the shingle, the bingo, the windblown bob, and the Eton crop. The dresses were tunics with no waist. The working women's dress was a cheap but artistic in plain, colorful, good materials of the homespun type, tailored suits and low-heeled shoes. Evening wear was still long gowns with plunging backs. Women's place was no longer only in the home. The 1920s symbolized short skirts, short hair, smoking, makeup, as well as free and easy manners and morals. A dance called the shimmy was shaking suburbia. Legs were revealed to the knees, with dress hems bias cut and uneven like handkerchief points. The years between 1920 and 1939 were known as the world of modernity, clean, white, and scientific. Fashions emphasized the modern aspect of popular culture as well as the human body. The curves and the fussy outlines of the 19th century were banished. The sleek and slender was in. More casual, relaxed clothes were popular with soft blouses and jumpers, with a few still wearing the bobbed hair and large brimmed hats for a romantic feel. In 29, hems were abruptly lowered, ushering in the new, slinky, and sinuous silhouette that was the hallmark of the 1930s, influenced by Coco Chanel, as well as the rayon fabrics, popular due to its affordability. Hems remained calf-length for most of the 30s, with long gowns worn for evening activities. Styles were more romantic, and the narrow look continued until the late 30s, when tighter waists and fuller skirts started being reintroduced for the 1940s look, which was influenced by Broadway plays and Hollywood movies. Film star dresses were even available for purchase in the mid-30s as advertising for new films. Between the two wars, mass production methods were used in large-scale garment manufacturers using conveyor belt systems, eliminating the human touch. The years from 39 to 1950 were known as ration fashion. Though couture styles continued to evolve in Paris, women used whatever fabric was available for the dresses. In the U.S., the uniforms for the women's forces were designed to look fashionable so as to attract women into the services. Headgear in 1943 was the glamour band, and hairstyles similar to Veronica Lake's. Stockings were scarce, and women would wear socks or even dye their legs with liquid makeup. Rayon slack suits with short jackets and scarf belts were chic yet casual. Patriotic colored clothing showed support for the services. After the end of World War II, in the late 1940s, Dior's new look featured a gradual explosion of creativity. Skirts were fuller, tops were more form-fitting, blouses lost their enlisted look, and broad shoulders disappeared. Excessive use of fabric celebrated the end of the war. Hawaiian-themed fashions appeared to welcome the boys back. The world was starting to look towards the future, and fashions from the 1950s to the present have reflected this. See the last few dresses here. Okay. This tall girl here is number 14. Right. From the 1900s. It's a one-piece, short-sleeved, ankle-length, straight black velvet dress. Has low square neck with lace inset and fabric embroidered band around the waist, as well as a hanging back panel, which is also embroidered and lined with black satin and a gorgeous plume hat. This dress was worn by Lynn Cummings at the 1988 show. The next piece here is a two-piece dress for the 1910 to 1915. It's a very fine, transparent cream lawn fabric, which has a floral bouquet embroidery pattern in sage green and black. The blousey bodice has a high frilly neck with black ribbon tie and a ruffled front, set in sleeves with ruffled and ribboned bottom. The skirt is 3 layers, each with the same embroidery pattern. This is definitely from the frou-frou or the Edwardian era. We're up to the stage now. Number 16, a one-piece, sleeveless, V-necked, laced, lightweight, fine border print cotton with a dotted and paisley design in ecru and sage, with a sage green cummerbund and 4 rolled smock piping just below the waist. This dress is something you really need to look closely at. It's absolutely beautiful. It has this fine lace bolero top with sage green ribbon and covered button closures at the shoulders, the sides, and the wrists. There's also an underskirt of sage green satin with a scalloped hem. And this is another dress worn by another one of my sister-in-laws back in '88. The next dress is from 1925, and it's a sleeveless, one-piece party dress. It's lace over a Georgette striped ribbon. It's a low-waisted shift with rose and green variegated taffeta ribbon belt with bows on each side. The dress has a side closure with snaps and an underskirt of scalloped pure silk, which is adorned with a tiny rosebuds and picot edging in the skirt. Really, very, a dress that will never be worn again. The next dress is, what is it? Number 18. Oh, I know it. I'm wearing it. I keep forgetting. This is me. I'm wearing a dress from 1928. It's a green silk velvet, V-neck, has a small tie and a diamond brooch. My mom keeps correcting me on that. It has a straight 3/4 length skirt, layered bottom. I have 2 little layers. Lower on one side and horizontal tacking at the hip. The full length sleeves have cuffs at the ends. This dress, well, and the hat's pretty fancy. The dress was worn by Janet Woodward Wheeler. She's sitting over in the back. In 1988, and myself tonight. Number 19 is a 2-piece rust and red silk crepe. It's sleeveless with a 3/4 length sleeve. The front panel is a center pleat down front and back, and it has a separate jacket with lace cuffs. Really pretty. And this was worn by Lee Tabor's wife, Margaret, in 1988. The next dress is a 2-piece, full length, number 20 from 1935. It's a full length bias cut, dark brown velvet evening gown with a V-neck, a gathered sleeve, and 4 slits at the neck and the back, which you can't see from here, but right at the shoulder here, there's 4 vertical slits. It's really pretty. This was worn by Ann Fix in the 1988 show. Our next center lady here, it's very sexy, sea green satin halter top gown is gathered at the center front with side closures and no side seams with a paneled back. It's a long bias cut skirt, very full. It just flows effortlessly. It was worn by my sister-in-law Gail at the 1980 pageant, and she wore a black veil evening coat with tasseled shoulders with that. These 3 or 4 dresses here might be a little bit mixed up in era, so we're not quite sure which we're going to. It's 1940s black straight dress, has lace edge, short sleeves with this pretty capelet with all sequins and lace. It's a really stunning dress. The next dress, time to shimmy in this one. This fun rust crepe and brown fringe short sleeve dress really moves very nicely. It was worn by Karen Chandler at the 88 show. And our last dress here tonight is from the 1940s, 1950s. Short, strapless, full skirt. It has a crinoline, stiff underneath it to keep the skirt out. This was purchased by Joanne Wheeler for her prom at Waltham High School. It includes a shoulder cape, which you put your arms through a strap to keep it on your shoulders. It has a green cummerbund at the waist, a side zipper closure, and it's buckram actually, the underskirt for stiffness. And I get to wear this dress back when I was quite a bit thinner. But thank you very much for your attention. Hope you enjoyed this class from the past. Please take a moment to look at the displays, and refreshments are served downstairs. And I'm sure you want to say anything more.
Nope, feel free to walk around. The programs, they have most of the information you need, but feel free to Evie, Elma, interview